Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. More than likely you've interacted with a sociopath at work. There's enough of them out there. They're the boldest of manipulators, detached from empathy and often with nefarious intent. But beware the facade. They'll pull you in and make you their closest ally before an emotional strike that you won't see coming. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. They're hard to spot, perhaps because their devious ways are hidden behind a veil of charm. But be warned, says Professor Gary Martin, CEO of the Australian Institute of Management in WA. Sociopaths operating in your business can cause immense damage. Best scenario, he says, is to avoid hiring them in the first place. But that too can be hard because their engaging demeanour can fool the best of us. Professor Martin lets us in on some of the dangers posed by sociopaths. First question Chris Ashmore asks, how common is it to find these sociopathic characters in the workplace?
If you talk to people in the workplace and describe their worst experience in a particular workplace, they'll pretty quickly turn to someone who displays some or many of the characteristics of a sociopath. And the thing about it is that sociopaths are attracted to organisations where behaviours do go unchecked. And that, of course, does include modern workplaces. Some say that up to 4% of the general population are sociopaths or display sociopath characteristics. So chances are that in your lifetime in the workplace you might meet several of these characters or these types of people. And the other thing about it is that some people say as you go up the organisation there's a few more to be found.
And you've highlighted the need to be particularly careful at the hiring stage, not to rush things and take on the wrong type of character.
Yeah, look, the reason I'd say that was because of characteristics of sociopaths. They're often very charming. So sociopaths can get jobs very easily if you were just to say, have an interview or chat to you. There's a charm going to come through. And sometimes in organisations where interviews are the only way of determining whether someone gets a job or not, plus a written application, it always does pay to actually scratch the surface and go a little bit deeper by talking to people that have worked with that person, and in particular, those people that have reported to that particular person, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've highlighted 6 signs that you may be working with a sociopath. If we go look at the first one, that they're highly charming. What are the watch-outs here?
People describe general traits of sociopaths as an exaggerated sense of self-worth. For example, pathological lying, a heightened lack of emotional intelligence, a lack of empathy, they're skillful manipulators, they have a parasitic workplace style, and there's no general definition of a sociopath because doctors don't even use the term sociopath. They use the term antisocial personality disorder, and sociopathic behaviours fit in with that broader definition. But the characteristics that I've highlighted, I say that one of the things that you look for in determining whether someone has sociopath tendencies would be the charm, because the charm is used to describe many of the other behaviours that they have, and it helps them to just blend right into the workplace because charm, it's a covering type mechanism. So you can think of sociopath perhaps as a con artist, charm people to get what they want, but there's really another side to that person.
Well, another sign, the second of the 6 signs, is they lack empathy. What does that mean in the work context?
Well, it's the strongest of all of the characteristics of a sociopath or someone with sociopath tendencies. They find it exceptionally difficult to understand others' feelings and the impact that they have on someone. So they're very reckless because they don't consider other people's feelings or the impact any of their actions are going to have on another person. And they lack what might be described as emotional intelligence, which is obviously big in the modern workplace.
Then the third sign, they use emotional blackmail. What happens there?
Well, they use their charm once again to get close to you, and they're like your buddy, and you open up to them and you trust them. But whatever you do, they can then turn around whatever you've said to them, whatever you've confided in them, and use it to get something that they want by, say, for example, threatening to disclose their comments or passing around information that you've passed on to them. So they can really manipulate people's emotions.
And the fourth sign, they have no conscience.
Exactly as it is. They have no remorse, guilt or shame for any of their actions, and they really don't feel bad about anything they've done because they can't empathise with others.
Number 5, sociopaths have delusions of grandeur. In other words, they're smart, but not smart enough to recognise their own shortcomings.
Exactly. They've got huge egos and quite often highly unrealistic views of their own abilities. They're often narcissists, so they're far more interested in talking about themselves than hearing from others.
And the sixth sign, they're callous and sadistic. That's pretty nasty.
Well, a modern leader will gain people's respect to get things done in the workplace. People who have respect generally will have people around them that will want to work with them and get things done for them. And someone with a range of sociopath-type tendencies, they'll try to motivate others just through fear, not through respect, but through fear. So basically through things like threats, because they're just not connected with the damage that they cause others. They just can tear down a person's world and not feel bad about it.
Now, these people can be extremely damaging in the workplace, can't they? What sort of havoc can they wreak?
The main type of havoc is that they tend to set people up against each other. So it creates a really toxic workplace culture when people are not working with each other, they're working against each other. That increases stress and anxiety. And for any business that's aware of the impact of stress and anxiety, they'll know that reduced productivity will come with that type of toxic workplace environment.
Now, if you do identify a sociopath in the workplace, what can be done?
There's a number of things. First of all, it's important to be able to diagnose them, first of all. So you've got to make a judgment call about whether you think someone has sociopath tendencies or not. So, you'd consider things whether you felt used by the person, whether you've had instances of that person lying and deceiving you. Are they the sort of person that tends to take a lot and not give back? Do they try and make you feel guilty, for example? There's a whole range of things that really elaborates on the things we've already talked about that you can use to diagnose someone first of all. And if you do make a judgment call that they do have sociopath tendencies, then the next thing is you've got to try and avoid them wherever you can. You don't give in to their charm and give them what they want. You certainly don't argue with them. And you also have to make a judgment call about warning others about their behaviour, which sometimes can be dangerous too. But you do need to speak up about inappropriate type behaviours, including the bullying tactics that quite often they use.
Now, there's a danger, you point out, that they often have friends in high places. Doesn't that make it hard to out them with the boss?
Look, absolutely. But in most organisations where a sociopath resides, many people are impacted. So if those people band together and take their complaints to their boss or their manager, then he or she will be compelled to listen despite any friendship or allegiance that he or she has with that person.
And on the flip side, Gary, if they are smart and charming, isn't that a valuable asset in a business? There may be some resistance to letting them go.
Yeah, look, they're charming, particularly with clients, but they don't have the emotional intelligence to work as part of a team, so things can quickly come unstuck. And I think employers end up valuing teamwork more than charm at the end of the day.
Well, final question. If the boss of the business is the sociopath, what then do you advise?
Well, that's really very simple. You try and find another job as soon as you can.
That was Professor Gary Martin. CEO of the Australian Institute of Management, WA. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Executive producer is Heather Dawson. Producers are Nick Schilberger, Chris Ashmore, Jeff Waters, and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts and Belinda Trimboli. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.